Good?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, everybody quiet.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me. Again, my name's Sean. If you don't know me, I work for the library up here, very part-time. My main job is at CU Boulder. I work with rare books there. And I live in Longmont, which is why you don't see me at these too much, because it's kind of a long drive, so I apologize. But yeah, I work with Christine to help manage the archive through the libraries. And one of the big things we've been doing recently is trying to collect a lot of the early 20th century, and all the 20th century, really. You know, we think it's kind of the perfect time to collect the 20th century. And the more we've been doing that, the more I've kind of realized how important Sanborn is to this period and to this area. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Yeah, thank you to the community center, and thank you everyone for putting this on continuously and inviting me to do this. So I'm excited to present about this. So I titled it Before the Tourist Boom because I believe Sanborn is probably the most important photographer documenting much of like the tourist infrastructure up here in Clear Creek County in the second quarter of the 20th century. And that would go on to kind of serve as the backbone for the post-World War II tourist boom and really up to the present in this county, as we'll see. By tourist infrastructure, I'm really talking about roads, hotels, restaurants, gas stations, ski areas, that kind of stuff. All the things that get built during this period that we sort of take for granted today living up here, but have not always been here. So that's kind of what I want to focus on. And then the other thing about this time period is there's less photographs from this period than you might expect. Probably most of you are aware, but the county population is taking a nosedive. In fact, 1930 is the lowest census numbers for the whole 20th century. Only 2,100 people live in the whole county in 1930. So Georgetown drops all the way to 300 in 1930, and Idaho Springs is like most of the population besides that. So that's another reason why I think Sanborn is so important. Yeah, so let's move on. See if this thing works. Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm going to introduce him really quickly and talk about the postcards and the images he took here. This is only sort of working. I'm going to show a bunch of examples. Hopefully you came to see lots of photos, and I will deliver on that. And then I'm going to talk about kind of his significance for us when we study local history as residents, as researchers, as people interested in the evolving history of this county. So he's kind of an enigma, actually, Harold Sanborn. We don't know much about him. We don't even have one photo of him, which is crazy, because you'll see how many photos he took in a second. I think he was born in 1891 and died in 1963. All of this is I think, by the way. I'm assuming he's the Harold Sanborn that's living in Denver in the 1910s, that's distributing magazines and newspapers. It makes sense that he transitions to this role of publications in the 1920s. But really interestingly, he actually goes to court in Boulder for selling a lewd magazine called Hot Dog. Here's a cover of one of them. Yeah, very risque, very lewd. It was really anti-prohibition. It was pretty like kind of masculine coded and pretty misogynistic and sexist, but kind of funny in a crude way. But yeah, a judge apparently really didn't like this magazine, and he had to pay a fine, and yeah, it was really interesting. And the first mention I find of a Sanborn company distributing things like postcards is 1921, but I'm unclear. I think he might have just been distributing. He might not have been selling at the time. By 1924, it seems like he's transitioned fully into the role of a photographer and then a publisher of images. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Oops. This thing's like only sort of working. So again, around 1924, all of this is kind of circa. he founded the Sanborn Souvenir Company, which focused on publishing what are called real photo postcards. What that means is these are postcards with actual photographs printed on them. So he took negatives about basically postcard size, and then he, in a darkroom, exposed glossy photo paper to that negative to make prints, and the back of the paper is postcard. So if that makes sense, these are actual prints taken from the negative in a darkroom. So he had to physically do each print. There's no kind of mass production of this. And because of the postcards, because of their postcards, I actually believe it documents things that most people don't always document, which is particularly he was interested in what a tourist would do, right? So roads, he took a lot of pictures of exterior and interior of hotels and restaurants, ski areas, things that we might not have any other photos of, even though cameras are pretty common by this period, right? And we'll see some examples of restaurants, interiors, and stuff in a second. And just generally, he's such an important source of historical documentation. He took 40,000 photographs in Colorado, a few in Wyoming, like a few thousand, but most of that was Colorado, between the 20s and the 50s. And so they're critical, in my opinion, to understanding the historical changes that go on kind of in the mid-20th century. So hopefully I've hammered that point enough. So let's jump through, see if I can get, oh, there's an example of a, yeah, sorry, this thing, let me angle this a little better so it can actually read. There we go. So yeah, here's like, okay. Oh, we get to see that again. That's okay.
The next one there. Just wants to roll into the next.
It's gonna work, it's gonna work.
Look fast.
Okay, 1, 2,
3, look fast, everybody.
no, it doesn't like it.
Ready?
Okay, there we go. So that's the interior of Echo Lake Lodge, for example, which I'll talk more about in a second. Okay, so let's talk about what he actually photographed here. So he was really following major tourist routes. So you can see I have, this is not a great map, I kind of drew it myself, but there's Clear Creek County boundaries, obviously. And we have the, this blue line that I drew is what he calls the B series, and that's centered on Berthoud Pass. So he would name series, so like Rocky Mountain National Park is his R series. So B series is centered on Berthoud Pass, but it actually goes from Empire all the way to Kremling. Obviously, I'm going to mostly focus on Clear Creek side of this. Then he has the I series, which is centered on Idaho Springs, but it actually runs all the way through Clear Creek Canyon. It also encompasses Blackhawk, Central City, and then of course, kind of modern I-70, so Georgetown, Silver Plume, Loveland Pass, and then kind of some of the offshoots, so like St. Mary's Glacier and Clear Lake and stuff. And then he has the E series, obviously stood for Mount Evans, and this encompassed the totality of what is now the Mount Blue Sky Scenic Byway. So those were his 3 big series. Obviously the E series was entirely in Clear Creek County. The others went outside the county as well, though most of the pictures, I would say, still were part of this county. And my estimate is he probably published about 750 images of just Clear Creek County. I'll tell you how many we found so far near the end, but not that many. So yeah, let's talk about what they actually look like. So you're going to see a bunch of these tonight. And he labeled all of these in the negative. So he took the plastic negative, wrote on the back, on the back of the photograph, and then, so when he printed it, wrote it in black ink, so when he printed it, it appears white here. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. He's got some kind of title, and then he always signed his name. Sometimes they get intricate, like this one, he's got a nice swirly in the S, often not so much. But then here's that series number, letter and that I mentioned. So I is for Idaho Springs. That's why I pulled an Idaho Springs photo. And then he numbered them continuously, sort of. He did a set like 1 to about 150, and then for some reason at some point in the 30s, and I can't figure out why or when exactly, he jumped and just restarted at 750 for all his series. It's not just a Clear Creek. I don't know, he liked the number 750, I guess. here's the problem with the Sanborn postcards, and this is probably why they don't get as much use and interest as you might expect, is they're really hard to date. And that's because he was active for 30 years, and he did a few things. One, he took photos that he wanted to last a long time. So he printed some photos for 20, 30 years, some of the same photos. And that's why you see a lot of roads with no people, or roads with no cars, or just kind of generic buildings. This is not a good example because it does have cars and people, but this is a really interesting example. This is complex, but his negatives were kind of sold off 20 years ago, and I can't really find them anymore, but there's a photograph from like old news articles when they were being sold, and I realized something really significant here, which is this is the negative, and this is a print of an image of Central City. You can actually see that he adjusted the negative. So you can see he erased at some point what he had here and added his little swirly S. And I've noticed that he did this more than just this. He actually would renumber photos. So we have photos that are exactly the same but are numbered 59 and also 750. So that makes dating also really, really challenging. But if we get a bunch of these cards, one nice thing is that because they're postcards, they get sent through the mail sometimes, and that gives us an end date for the photograph, right? If it's sent in 1937, it can't be taken after that, obviously. And so once we acquire a lot of these, we can start making a lot of assumptions of when things were, and we're at least, especially for the B and the E series, we're pretty good at getting within like 5 years now, which is pretty nice to help date a lot of the stuff happening. Here's another example of dating difficulties. This postcard was sent through the mail in 1953, but you can see it's still a dirt road in the image. So the image was taken over 15 years ago because Berthoud Pass was paved in 38. So that's another way we can date these photos, kind of understand the terminus points of when roads change or when everything else changes. All right, so let's dive in. Basically, the rest of this presentation I split into the 3 series, so I wanted to talk about each one of those, and then, we'll dive into each of them. So let's talk about the I series, which again, I'm calling before I-70. It's more like before US 6 because it follows 6, but I-70 really changed this landscape, as we're all well aware. Here's a nice Georgetown from late 20s, probably.
30s.
Or early 30s.
The school's there. The school's there, so no, that's the Barton, excuse me. So yeah, 20s to 30s.
Okay.
We're not there yet, so that's another indicator of when it might be closer to.
Oh yeah. See, I just threw some of these. I just threw up. I didn't
Yeah.
look too closely. So May's not there.
Library's not there. Yeah, it should be right there.
Well, it could be behind the,
The Hamlet.
the Himalayas trees.
All right. So as a reminder, the I series. I already kind of mentioned this. It's that red line again. Okay. So obviously in the 1920s, things are rapidly changing in this corridor, right? So the train is gradually stopping. It first stops passenger service, and then by the 30s, it's stopping freight. But I really like this image because it kind of captures all of it, right? And the road, so this is the road between Lawson and Empire, because it first went to Empire and went over Union Pass for a while. So this is probably like mid to late 20s also, this image. But you can see kind of the different usage patterns here, right? So you can see what was becoming now the road that people were taking up Berthoud Pass, because Berthoud Pass had just opened up. You can see the train is still here, like right along the creek. Then you can see the road in the background as well. So you can see that usage patterns are really rapidly changing. And Sanborn is luckily able to capture that because he's starting to come up here right at 25-ish and photographing this stuff. And he likes roads. You're going to see a lot of roads. But yeah, I mean, also I alluded to this in the start, but even his town photos are really important because the populations are dropping so much, especially on this western half, so Georgetown and Silver Plume. But nonetheless, really important documentation. And these are easier to date because, as you just saw, like we all can think of buildings and everything else and help date. date those. Idaho Springs in the 20s through the 40s. It's actually really interesting. The population really jumps up between 1930 and 1940. Some of it might be early tourist infrastructure. I don't really know. I need to dive into that a bit more. But that's all to say that Sanborn was really able to capture the changes happening in the towns themselves. So this is obviously outside the town. I showed part of this photo before from the 30s. You can see Idaho Springs is now accessible to Denver, right? With automobiles becoming more powerful, having better ranges. And so Idaho Springs, more than Georgetown at this time, is really benefiting from the roads and the better automobiles. And you can see the main streets hopping even kind of at the mid to late Depression, right? And the population is booming, in relative terms, booming. And a lot of tourist infrastructure is popping up. So obviously you've got the hot springs, which as I think all of you know, they really love to call it the radium hot springs. Really like to tout that. And this photo is from the 30s, before 36, because postcard helps us date it. This is a really cool interior shot of the Placer Inn, which is a restaurant. Chris helped me with this.
Wow, that's an interesting shot of it, though. Yeah.
So, restaurant where Tommy Knockers is now in Idaho Springs. Like I said, he liked to take photos without people. But what's really fascinating is that places like this probably sold his postcards. So there's this kind of what's the word I want?
Symbiotic?
Yeah, symbiotic relationship between the two, where he would take their postcards and then they would, both make money off this endeavor. But yeah, I just love seeing the interiors of, this little music performance stage, little dance floor even. And these murals are really cool.
Let's recreate those.
Oops, oh no. Okay, here's Hotel de Paris interior. Yay, well. Okay, but when I scanned this picture today, I just realized, I was like, oh, what do we got there? So I blew that up. These are actually Sanborn. You can see this, it looked better when I was looking close, but you can see the white titles here. So Hotel de Paris literally has Sanborn postcards, so that's cool, in the picture itself. And then the I series also, he's already up here. And basically what happens is he's living in Denver, and this is my understanding, I think when a new road opens, a new thing changes, he's up here to take the photos, to really do the advertising and be the first photographer to get those kind of postcards out. So that's why he's one of the first people to come to take images of Loveland. And he's using his car, we'll see in a second. So he's really driving these roads too. Here's another shot of Loveland. Obviously, it wasn't paved until 50. Yeah?
If we know his car, couldn't we then go to the registration and then find his address from there?
Possibly. Yeah, I haven't dived deep into him as a person. I was really focused on the cars, but that's another.
There are boxes of car registrations over at the clerk's office, and you don't want them.
Yeah, and this would be Denver car registration.
Oh yeah. So there'd be rooms. Yeah.
This is Western Slope actually, but I just wanted to show Loveland. Okay, so really quickly, the I series, I just wanted to bring it up. Important to show kind of that changing infrastructure, roads like Loveland Pass and what would become the US 6 and the I-70 corridor. So let's move on to the E series. So E for Mount Evans, I'm going to call it Mount Blue Sky here, of course. And let's talk about this because I think of all the Clear Creek County photos he takes, these are probably the most significant. And I'll mention it here again in the orange. I really think he's kind of probably one of the ones photographing up here the soonest, and he's the most prolific. So that's really cool. He took almost 150 photos of these roads before the road even reached the top, and then he took kind of a second round once the road got to the summit. So, oh, and he also included some views that aren't really actually on that road. So this is a really cool image of Upper Bear Creek. So that's kind of something I haven't dived into too much, but.
Do you know, is that the Evans Ranch?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
What's now the outdoor lot?
I have no clue.
From Benham
I actually
to-
put
yeah.
this up here purposely so that maybe someone would know.
We know,
So-
we can mesh that.
Alright, cool. Yeah, I thought, and
Gotta
he has
come
a
back
few
up.
images, because he was also active around Evergreen,
Yeah.
so he has images like this that are really, really, I think, important. So as a quick reminder, Echo Lake and soon after Summit Lake are purchased by Denver. This idea to make Denver Mountain Parks this big circuit, I think you're all kind of know this story to some extent. This was really happening starting about 1912, 1914, and the 20s is when a lot of it is completed. So Denver pays for half of the road to Echo Lake, and that it reaches Echo Lake in 1921. I don't know exactly when he comes up on that road. So the road then really quickly from Echo Lake to Summit Lake. So they get to Summit Lake in 1925, and Sanborn's up here taking photos of it. I love this photo with the kind of line of cars here, and that road looks rough. Like I
was just going to say, the previous photo of Lincoln Lake, it looks more safe than it is now.
This one, on the other hand, I'm not so sure.
Let's see what it looks like after the repaving project is done.
Yeah.
Then Echo Lake Lodge opens in 1926. I think just like Hotel de Paris, you would find lots and lots of Sanborn photos of the lodge, of Mount Blue Sky Scenic Byway there. So he took a lot of views. He took the interior views, and these were popular as well with tourists who got to actually experience the lodge. There's a close-up of that inside.
It hasn't changed.
Chicago Creek Road's completed in 27. I like this picture. I'm not sure why this family is outside of their car, but
There was nobody else there.
yeah, taking photos, I guess. Yeah, they've got a kid with them, which I think is super cool. And then 1931 is when people could start going to the top. This is just a wild photo to me. Because there's so few cars. And speaking of his car, I don't have the back, but I realized, unfortunately the photo's not very good, but this does say Sanborn, I think photographic company, but I'm not quite sure. So this is actually, we have no photos of him, but maybe one photo of his car. This is probably a 30 or 31 Model A delivery truck. So he's driving this around Clear Creek, all around Clear Creek to take his photos. Probably had tons of like camera apparatus stuff in the back. So pretty cool to get a glimpse of this guy who's quite elusive. And plus he just has so many random views of all the different stretches of the road. Like I'm sort of convinced, we don't have all these by any means, but I'm sort of convinced like we could reconstruct all of it. That's how many photos he took. He's kind of prolific in that way. Yeah.
Do you know if he might have been selling some of these photographs to the highway department?
It's very possible, yeah. I don't know because I just don't have a lot of information on him. He didn't leave. He left records, sort of when he printed what, but those have been dispersed. I'll tell that story at the end, actually. But nonetheless, like, I think there's a lot us as people interested in history can really glean from these photographs. So again, E-Series, I think Sanborn's one of the first and probably the most comprehensive photographer of this Mount Blue Sky Scenic Highway area. And it really helps us kind of imagine what the tourists were really interested in. So he's taking photos of where tourists would go. They followed these roads, they stayed at these lodges, they ate at these restaurants, and that's kind of what we get with the postcards. So it's a good example of what a tourist 100 years ago would have experienced, right? All right, so let's talk about the last series now, the Berthoud Pass series, the B. And there's a lot of skiing in this. I'm not a skier, so sorry if I butcher anything, but oops. So again, the B series starts at Empire, goes up Berthoud Pass, and all the way through to Kremling. There is a Grand Lake The G series starts up here, so it really is focused on what is now US 40. So Berthoud Pass is completed, that's an error. It's actually completed in 1923 as a dirt road, and it's fully paved in 1938. US 40 becomes the first fully paved transcontinental road. There's actually a big celebration at the top of Berthoud Pass of people coming, because it's kind of the last point to get paved, and they all come in July, July 1st of 1938. There's an article in Rocky Mountain News if you want to read about it. And also, I think we're all well aware, became one of the first major skiing spots, and yeah, we'll talk about that. So here's a nice early Empire shot. This postcard is dated 29, so this photo is 25 to 29, maybe 23 to 29. So he was taking pictures again of the towns. And he really, this is really fascinating. So he has a lot in the B series. He really, really seems to like Berthoud Pass, and he seems to be going there a lot. I mean, it is not so much anymore, obviously, but it was sort of the way you got across Colorado for a long time. And so I think that kind of reflects the bias of what people were actually driving, right? That he is so fascinated. He also loves this mountain, which he's calling Crater Mountain, which I think is called Engelman Peak now. But seriously, he has dozens and dozens of different images of this mountain, which is just fascinating. So he loves being at the pass or near the pass on the road looking south. So looking back towards Empire Valley. Kind of interesting. But I love the shots of the really early summit. So here is probably pretty early, 23 to 25 of the summit here. This is an amazing shot. So around 1925, he took this image. He says it's in the fall, so there's obviously a few inches of snow on the ground. And I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but it looks like they're tying some horses. I don't know if some of these cars failed or what exactly is going on. But nonetheless, it's kind of a nice transition because, yeah, don't go.
Extra horsepower.
Yeah, literal horsepower, yeah. So Berthoud Pass Inn at the top opens in 1925. And they also definitely sold Sanborn postcards because they stamped all of their postcards Berthoud Pass Inn, top of the world, and the elevation. And so this is a really cool spot. So they actually had a gas filling station here. They had a restaurant, and obviously some kind of gift shop. And I guess just some vehicles hanging out too. This is an early trash can, which I think is really cool. So it says waste on it. They haven't changed much in 100 years, obviously. But yeah, so Berthoud Pass Inn is up there, and again, the tourist infrastructure is key. So beginning in 1931, this is pre-1931, this is how treacherous the road could look in the snow, right? Beginning in 31, it's kept open in the winter. Obviously, it would have been rough on occasions, but they did plow it. And that leads, of course, to the ski boom in the late 30s in Berthoud Pass, up through the 40s. So, oops, sorry. So this is a cool article in the Rocky Mountain News in 1938. They said that year had 66,000 skiers and 26,000 were at Berthoud Pass. So it's almost 40% of all the skiing was happening on Berthoud Pass. So just to put it all in perspective, I think we all know Berthoud Pass is important, but just kind of emphasize that point. This image is from 39 or earlier, so late 30s, and you can see, I mean, the mountains are pretty crowded already. And I love that in these cases he actually took images of the parking lots, which I really enjoy, and the shelter houses and everything like that. Obviously, you all know there was a rope tow installed in 36, so that's another big draw. But here's another shot at the summit, which, yeah, and as well as a bus, which I really, really enjoy. So that's another thing, people are taking buses up here as well. But, yeah, busy skiing parking lot, seems like not much has changed, right?
I like the ladies' boots back there.
Yes.
Does everybody remember their mothers wearing that kind of boots
I-
over their shoes?
Hopefully they change.
Yeah, galoshes. You just put your shoes inside of them and strap them over. Yeah, they've been around a long time.
So he literally has, again, dozens and dozens, and to my knowledge, like I've done a lot of scanning, like not physically scanning, but looking through Sanborn's different images around Colorado, and even like somewhere like Loveland Pass, or Loveland Ski Area, he just doesn't have the depth of photographs, so I really think he's coming up to Berthoud a lot, and this is kind of his, I mean, as someone from Denver, he can come up for the day, take a bunch of photos, and be done, whereas a lot of any other of the ski areas, he wasn't really doing that. So again, I just want to emphasize with the B series that he's here when, he's there when Berthoud Pass Road is constructed. He's there documenting the early ski area, and his postcards clearly appealed to people from this period, showing off things like skiing. So people would send it to their friends, to their family, or even keep it for themselves in a scrapbook. So always keep in the back of your mind with these, that these were postcards, right? Not just photographs.
They didn't charge for postcards, postage on postcards?
Oh, this is an
That
interesting
one
one.
was free.
This guy's actually in the Army, so he has free post. This is during World War II. So yeah, this is kind of an odd example I chose, but usually they did.
Do you
It was
think he would have
still-
been part of the 10th Mountain Division if he was in the Army at that point and coming up here for the snow and the skiing?
So it's postmarked Idaho Springs. Yeah, what is he saying?
Because they had a camp up at Echo Lake and would sometimes come to the city from what I've been researching.
Darn. So he starts in blue pen and then he has parentheses, darn pen won't work at this altitude. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I can't quite read it very well on this.
Be here.
We still had a wild time, is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So November, so he very well was probably skiing. Oop. This is my last slide.
Yeah, that's not the recount.
That's not. That's my background.
This millennium.
All right, so that was my kind of quick run through of the 3 series, and we actually have over 200 of his images, unique images now at the archive, and I probably showed like 30. So there's a lot more out there that we have in physical format. So we'd be happy if you're really interested in this. We'd be really happy. Chris or I can help facilitate access to this material, and we have it organized by his series. So if you're like, I care about Berthoud Pass, we can pull out just the B series. And as archivists, I've alluded to this throughout the presentation. We've done a lot of work using these cards to really hone in the dating of them. And so you'll see, like, when we describe them online, we'll have pretty tight date ranges if possible. And some of that is because of his numbering system, some of that is because we have postmarks, and some of that is because we know when roads changed, everything like that. But what I really wanted to emphasize also is the cards that we're sure are in public domain, so were published 1930 or earlier, which is a good chunk of the early stuff. We're putting them up on our digital repository right now, so there's over 30 out there. Here, if you haven't gone in a while, I would recommend going. You can also just get it through the library's website, go to local history archives, and it'll link out to this. So you can just then keyword search like Sanborn Berthoud Pass or Sanborn Idaho Springs, and a lot of what I've shown will come up, and some other stuff that we haven't shown. And then we're still looking into like how we can do more of these. We noticed that some museums and libraries are putting Sanborns out, even though they're technically under copyright, and I still have to figure out exactly what's going on with Sanborn's copyright. Basically what happened is the Sanborn Souvenir Company was around until 2000s. They were publishing postcards. So that's the other thing. You will see like color postcards into the modern era, or what are called photomechanical prints. So taking an image and making like a lithographic or a metal plate out of the image and then stamping that. So you'll see those by Sanborn Souvenir Company as well, though these were kind of the bread and butter of his work in this period that I was talking about. But in 2006, somebody bought the whole company and found a lot of his negatives and a lot of his prints and some of his information. Obviously, he was well deceased, and I think his son also had died. And in 2006, he tried to sell the whole collection for $500,000, which is a crazy sum. I mean, it is 40,000 photos, and I think a lot of the negatives were there, but not all of them. And no one bought it, so Denver Public Library and History Colorado couldn't afford it. And I don't know what happened next. I kind of think it was probably sold off piecemeal because I can't seem to really find anything on where the negatives went. So I'm still hunting for that kind of information, but nonetheless, the prints themselves on the postcards are still very readily available on, used markets, eBay, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the things we've been doing as librarians and archivists, trying to reconstruct all the photos that he did take in Clear Creek County. So yeah, that's a really long roundabout way of saying I'm still looking into the copyright issues, and if we can deem it kind of an orphaned work, basically, which means no one can really claim the copyright anymore, then that would kind of be nice, because then we could just throw up all 200 of his images, even from up through the 50s. So look out for that, and yeah, if you're really into Sanborn, just check our digital repository occasionally, and we should have more and more up for you. So yeah, that's what I had for you. I really appreciate you all coming out and listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Can I toss in one thing, which is to
Yes,
say,
please.
so thank you so much for the library for two things. One, for supporting my eBay habit. We try not to bid against each other and other things, and the Colorado Historic Newspapers link and they've provided an ongoing amount to have more and more of the local newspapers digitized, and this year the Idaho Springs papers will be digital up until 1958. So that's pretty cool. We put a hold on the Georgetown papers because beyond 1920 they're awful. But we will do that. But we want to do the Idaho Springs papers, the center of the county population.
Yeah, we're getting to that point in history where we're running into copyright, right? Because copyright's sitting at 1930 right now. And Christine and I are really trying to get 20th century history better represented. So that's why we're working, but the people at the Colorado State Library are amazing, and they really know copyright, and they know newspapers, and they know because Georgetown Courier, to my knowledge, is an orphaned publication, so we can digitize the whole run. It's just a money issue right now.
And they said Clear Creek Mining Journal through the Front Range Journal were okay too.
Yeah, and even early current possibly. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, they even let us.
So yeah, that's kind of stuff we're working on as well.
Yep.
But thanks for pointing that out.
But yay library.
Yeah.
Yay!
So any questions on Sanborn? Yeah, Kevin.
Are you going to be doing similar work with Orrin Seeley's images?
Good question. I don't know. I just kind of picked up Sanborn first. I'd be happy to look into more. There's lots of photographers in the area, of course, but I'm not super familiar with a lot of them. So I'm happy. Yeah, we can chat more though.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Babe.
Is it the same Sanborn family from Colorado Springs that is with the Pikes Peak Hill climb? Do you know?
I do not know. Yeah, I didn't do a lot of research on the people themselves. Besides, I was trying to find why he started it and when. Yeah.
That's still, they have a big camp outside of Colorado Springs still, so I know there's a lot of family history there.
I don't know if it's the same Sanborns or not. I can look into it. Yeah.
I believe I've seen a photograph of the Sanborn Photographic Company's building. I may be thinking of the Detroit Photographic Company, which is really nice. Somewhere in downtown Denver. Have you seen that?
There's an old building because, yeah, there's,
Do you know where that was located?
I don't remember, but I looked this up a couple of months ago. And that's where all his stuff was housed when that guy in the early 2000s bought it, the whole company. So I don't think anything happens there anymore, but
Okay.
it's possible. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have much more. Yeah.
Do you know? Sorry, do you have
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Do you know if he was? Looks like he has his own company because his truck has the name on it. Is he being commissioned for these photos, or is he just taking them and then selling postcards? Like, how is he keeping that company adrift?
Yeah, I mean, so
afloat?
he's taking the photos he wants to, and then I mean, there might be a little commissioning. So Echo Lake Lodge maybe was like, we really want you to take this photo of the fireplace. Or, so like that, I don't really know. But most of like the roads and stuff, he's doing himself. And what's really interesting is, so not all his postcards have the same print runs at all. So what he would do is he would often print like a couple dozen. And if those sold well, then he would do a lot more of that same print. And so you get this really uneven nature where like, if you search, if you search Sanborn Silver Plume on eBay, you'll get like literally 50 hits of one of the cabooses like just sitting there. So that was apparently a popular card at the time. Whereas another shot, like there might only be one or a couple that I've ever seen of that same photograph. So it seems to be uneven. And from this few things I've gleaned about the records, which I don't know where they are, but back in 2006 when those records were purchased, it sounds like one of the articles from the 2006 sale was saying like some of the cards he printed only 25 copies of ever, and others he printed 1,000 copies of. So I'm assuming that's a market, or that's an economic decision. So yeah, he is kind of based on what's selling. Yeah.
I actually used Sanborn maps to figure out how old my house was because of the insurance maps. And it turns out that the Central Library has the books of them, right? And they've got a big stack, a podium kind of thing where it has all these books. I bet that they probably labeled where their headquarters is in one of these books.
So, unfortunately, that's a different Sanborn. Yeah, so the Sanborn Map Company is a totally different company. Yeah, and that's a full U.S., whereas Harold Sanborn's really focused in Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think that we can go back and do, because as I see those ones at Birth at Pass, I think of Carol Hunter and all the work that she did, and undoubtedly part of her collection would include some Sanborns as well. And I'm interested in the question regarding whether or not Colorado Highways would have commissioned some of those pictures. And there's a publication, Colorado Highways, that has a lot of photos in it. So are they
This is
Sanborns
a pretty
or not?
precursory look
Yeah,
at Sanborn,
but it's-
this is like all good future avenues.
It's true, and I think Sean and I both would really like to come up with enough pictures that would take the entire I-70 and US 40 corridors and be able to show what was there before the huge highways.
Yeah.
Because I-70 especially, I mean, it's just, but anyway. So thank you, Library, because we keep buying these pictures. And Frank Luca also did an extensive collection up here. So yeah, we just need more time and more money, and it's cool.
Are you accepting volunteers for research?
The research, research,
Does anybody
just
know
do it.
whether they're gonna open up the Echo Lake Lodge this summer?
Oh, I
I don't know.
The most recent that I've heard, because I work at the Iowa Springs Visitor Center, is that they're still renovating it. They actually plan on making it an actual lodge again. But that with
I
the
heard that.
price from, things going on with Denver's budget right now, it's sadly a little bit farther on the back burner, though you can still, go up and walk around it and, see it. They're not gonna be demolishing it. It is definitely gonna be, the plan is to renovate it, completely new septic system, and turn it into a lodge again, run by Denver Parks.
And a visitor
Yes.
center
Very much so.
and backcountry information center.
Yes. But for now, just, come to the Iowa Springs Historical Society,
And
and I'll
for-
link you up as best I can.
And for those of you who are here for the Cosmic Ray program and the monument, The Cosmic Ray Monument is up there at Echo
Oh,
Lake.
it's too bad it's not opening this year because it's 100 years this year.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.